welcome everyone to another episode of the Jonathan Project Podcast, where iron is sharpening iron, and we help men navigate the complex world around them. And we take the great story of Jonathan and his friend David as the inspiration for our show. If you are looking for prayer, you have a men's event going on, we would love to be a part of that. If you want us to be a part of that, take some inspiration from our show, please reach out to us at thejonathanprojectpodcast at gmail.com. Again, thejonathanprojectpodcast at gmail.com. Also, want to let you know you'll find this in the episode summary, the link to this. We have developed a men's devotional. That's right. And it's absolutely for free, which you cannot find anywhere nowadays. That's right. 28 days, 2 minutes a day, and you can be uplifted in lots of different ways. So, with that, we're going to kick off season 6. So excited for that. Jason, welcome to yet another season of the Jonathan Project. How you doing, man?
Be here. Good to see you. Yep. Makers getting at it.
That's right.
The devotional is free. Download it, read it. It would cost you nothing, or even saving the environment while we do it.
That's right. So I know it's been a busy week to say the least. I know it's going to be even more busy in the days ahead. Like lots of folks out there, the summer doesn't stop for parents and people working. So here we are. But
yeah,
we're in season 6, so I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of kick this off. So the first episode we're going to talk about here in season 6, I titled it, I think, and maybe we'll see if it sticks by the time we get to actually production. Is Jesus your spiritual concierge? Right? And I think
I'm gonna take a big word as a sign of disrespect.
I know, man. I hope everyone kind of sticks with me here, but yeah, your concierge, right? That person, if you ever been to like one of these all-inclusive resorts or hotels or something, that person that's there to book trips and all those kinds of things and make life just generally easy on your whims, right? Well, if we're honest, at some point in time, maybe multiple times or maybe ongoing, we look at Jesus and we paint him into being that, right? I think about the old stores here, and I'm probably going to take a lot of people down memory lane. You remember old Build-A-Bear, right?
Yeah.
There was this great store, lasted, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then faded away. But you could go in, and it seemed like there was endless possibilities on how you could build these teddy bears. You could put clothes on them and all these kind of different things. Well, how often do we, if we think about it from a spiritual point, do that with Jesus, right? The biblical Jesus, right, who says, take up your cross, right, which means that you're going to have something go on and you have to persevere through, where he says the way is narrow. He gives all these things that illustrate, man, life is a little bit tough, but stick with me and keep walking. How often do we just hear, oh, well, Jesus talked about prosperity, he talked about blessings, he talked about the good things that are coming in heaven, and we miss and we create our own little Build-A-Bear Jesus, if you would, that is a little shallow. So that's what we're going to talk about.
No, that's excellent. As I've talked to people over time, and they're, everybody has their version of Jesus, and it was kind of made into this joke in the Talladega Nights. It's like, well, I think of Jesus as a baby. I think of Jesus as this. But in reality, you don't get to pick and choose. It's just like when, he crosses the Jericho, and I love that. I love that. When they cross the Jericho and they're getting ready to go against the wall, or cross the Jordan, they're getting ready to go against the walls of Jericho. And Joshua looks at this guy and he goes, whose side are you on? Mine or theirs? And he goes, I don't know if you know this, Hoss. I'm on God's side. That's it. I'm on my side. That's it.
Yeah.
And so, and you and I talked about this, and we were kind of talking. I remember I go back to a friend of mine and I were having these discussions. And you hear people, they'll say, well, Jesus was really a good guy. He's a teacher, right? He was a healer. I mean, that's recorded outside the Bible. He's a healer. He was a good teacher. He really kind of this super elite intellect, which he absolutely was or is. But, I had somebody go, well, he never said he was God. And I'm like, whoa, let's pause for a moment. Let's pause on that. Now, that's your definition of Jesus. But when we look at the Bible, if you look in the book of John, in John 8:24, he tells them, he goes, hey, if you don't believe on me, you're just going to die in your sins. He made it such a fact to them, to the Pharisees and everybody else, that in chapter 8, verse 59 and 8, 31 and 32, or 10, 31 and 32, they're like, we're going to stone you because you've made yourself equal to God. We're going to throw enough rocks to kill you.
Yeah,
That's a process,
that is a
right?
technique.
And it's because, like you said, he says in 14:6, I'm it. I'm going somewhere. There's some mansions. I'm building one for you. I'm going to show you where it is. I'm the way, and I am the truth, and I'm the light. Nobody's
Yeah,
going to see the Father but through me. There's one path,
I love it.
right?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Even right from the beginning, and I'm glad you brought up John because John, the beloved disciple, John, the kind of emotional disciple, he lays out a bomb right at the beginning of John 1 and 1. He says, "In the beginning was the Word,"
Yeah.
right? And he is describing the one, the only Jesus. He's like, in the beginning. So before you can go as far as back as you want to go, there was Jesus. And
Yeah.
the Word created everything. He is the creator. So, and I don't want to steal some thunder from my notes a little bit later, but that is a powerful thing to wrap your head around. Are you following Jesus the King? Are you following Jesus like the concierge, right? This thing that you've created that he serves you, right? And he's here to just kind of hit your wish buttons and all this kind of stuff. He was the beginning. He is everything, right? So, anyways, John
Well,
John
let's
hit
keep
the
it in
nail
Genesis.
on the head.
Let's keep it in Genesis, right?
Yeah.
And you said something like when you would go into Build-A-Bear, and I've contributed money to that store with, my daughter, and obviously not enough because I don't think they're in business. But
Nope.
uh, so you make those little bears in whatever image you want. But if you keep it in Genesis, God says we're going to make man in our image, and
Mm,
that's in Genesis 1:26. Then 1:27, he says, so he made man in his image. That's a big difference because the creator is the standard.
yes.
He sets the standard.
Yes.
I I don't get to. And for those of you who think that, well, this Jesus and that Jesus, pretty simple to interpret. I'm going to draw your attention to Psalm 145. And a good buddy of mine, Casey, pointed this out. He likes it and he says, hey, it talks about God's majesty and it kind of helps put things in order. And I'll tell you what I did when I read it. I'll tell you what I didn't find in there. My name or anyone else's.
There
That's
you go.
all it is, right?
Yep.
King of Kings.
Yep.
That's it.
No, I think many of us believers, I've been in that boat where I really wanted something. I really wanted to go a certain path, right? And I wanted Jesus to co-sign off on it, right? We unintentionally reduce Jesus to like this life enhancer. That's what Jesus is. He is here to enhance my life, which is, there's some truth. He did come to give you life, John 10:10, right? And to give you life more abundantly. But it is not the life that you get to pick. This is not pick your own adventure. I love those books back in the day as a kid, in elementary school. I love those, right? You felt like you were in control of the story.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work like that in your life. When we surrender our lives to him and ask him to be our savior, and the word that a lot of us have a problem with, the title that he holds, Lord means he's in control, right? And so when we reduce him down to this life enhancer, you're really taking away the power and all that he came to do on the cross and through that resurrection. That
Yeah.
life that he gained through the resurrection, which we gained, if we just have this make a wish and build a bear on a Jesus, you're missing out on some stuff.
So, we're not the only people to do this,
No.
right? Like, this is not a new thing. Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun. With that being said, you look in John chapter 6, he feeds the 5,000. Here it is. There's this little kid shows up, got the loaves, 5 fish, feeds the 5,000, and all of a sudden there's these 12 baskets full of food. And he had been healing people. And it says, as it goes on in John 6:26, it's like they were looking for him not because he had done all those miracles, but because they were full. And you think about it, when Jesus comes on the scene, they've got the most oppressive government on the planet. So, as we talked a little bit about politics and how half America is unhappy, the other half is happy, like everybody was unhappy with the Romans.
Yeah.
Everybody was unhappy.
Yeah.
And they didn't care. They dusted off the back of their hand on a person's skull and did it on the regular, right? But it's, as they go through this, he says they're going to get ready to make him king. And that's when he steps away. He says he was kind of concerned because they were going to make him king by force because they wanted to be free. And I had a pastor that mentioned, he said, that's pretty unique. A man that can create food. You don't have to worry about that when you're on a campaign. Everybody gets fed. And I thought, well, and the army gets healed. So, oh, you got an arrow through you. I got that. Get out and get back in that fight.
Yeah.
Right? They wanted the Build-A-Bear. No offense to any copyrights, but
Yeah.
they wanted that concierge to go, I want this government gone. You know,
Yeah.
I've got this dirty towel over here. It's stinking up my little lounge chair. I want you to take it away.
Yeah.
But that wasn't what he was about.
No. No. And there is a deeper thing here too, and it really kind of gets to a problem that it spans all of humanity, which is the obedience, right? And being able to have your heart surrender and follow. Luke 6:46. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say?
Yeah.
Some of those common examples of that custom savior that we all have fell into. The Instagram Jesus is really popular now. The
Mm,
motivational quotes, the feel good, but there's no lordship. The life is not being transformed, right? The on-demand Jesus. Oh, it's the 911.
mm,
It's a problem. The sky is falling. Now I want all the Jesus I can get and some, right?
yeah.
The comfort only Jesus. Not when I don't want you to beat me up because I did something wrong. I just want you to make me feel good. I like those scriptures where I get uplifted, but don't convict me.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, this is not nothing new, but in this era and as men and as spiritual leaders, you have to be cognizant of that, and you have to look out for those signs in your own life and in those in your family and those around you. If people are making these little really idle Jesus, that's a dangerous place to be for your faith and how the adversary can come against you.
Well, it's interesting. They make an idol Jesus. So if you craft it, then you kind of are above it, right? Like you become the creator of this concept,
Yeah.
this construct. So bear with me as I connect the dots.
Yeah.
So you said something like, "Hey, don't make me feel good or don't make me feel bad. Always make me feel good. Don't convict me." And Satan uses that lie, and it motivates you to go, "Well, if I think of Jesus in this light, I don't ever feel bad.
Hmm.
Hey, it's okay to feel bad." And I'm not beating you up right now, but what I am going to tell you is in this feeling bad, there is a path. And just like David took it when he says, "Hey, I've sinned and I've done wrong," and he runs right back to his relationship with God. For people who are out there that go, "Man, I've really messed," I want to give you this thought. Right now, I'm a great swimmer. I really am. I swim phenomenally well. You know why? Because I don't walk on water. Period.
Yeah.
Right? Like I make mistakes. I make a ton of mistakes. Uh, and but it's not that I don't. It's not that I make them. It's what I do afterwards. Right? It's like the boxing match. You're in one as a Christian,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, and you got to get back up. Be the last guy to fall down.
Yeah.
Satan's wailing on you, and you're like, man. But if I go sit over here on the sidelines, and just you take a break, it's okay. I got it. When I compare myself to Jesus, and I compare myself in the light of the cross, absolutely, I feel bad.
Yeah.
My conscience first.
Yeah.
It does, but it's my relationship with Him that I'm constantly running to. Not, that's not the Build-A-Bear. Build-A-Bear tells me everything's comfortable.
No, you're absolutely right, Jason. And if the Jesus that you're following, right, never convicts you, never makes you want to look at what you're doing, you're probably following yourself.
Yeah,
You're not following the Jesus of the Bible, right? And that should be a conviction, right? But how do we get there? How do we start moving in that direction? Well, you have to spend time with him. right? And it sounds so intuitive, but it's a deeper thing. It's just like any other relationship. As much as me and you have relate, it's because we have spent time with each other,
Yeah.
right? Or with your spouse or with your kids. That is how you start understanding who they are and not what you want them to be, right?
Yeah.
And that real transformation starts with that solitude, getting into your word. Who is the word? It's just Jesus every day. And it's amazing how he will start speaking and transforming your life. You can't just seek him in the crisis. You got to seek him in those quiet times. And that's who you find out who Jesus really is and not what the world says or whoever. It's amazing. One of the things he asked the disciples, one of the most powerful questions he asked, he was like, who do you say I am? Right.
Yeah.
And they went through, and even them, right? And this is why I say, like, the
Yeah.
Bible is a great thing for anyone out there listening. You're like, oh, well, I'm not like you guys, I'm not all soul out. I'm not doing this public thing. I'm not like my pastor. I'm not like my neighbor who's a Christian, whatever it is. The Bible is amazing out of any religious text on this planet because it takes very broken and flawed people, the man after God's own heart, who we will constantly reference on this show because he is a great study for every man, every person. David,
Yeah.
uh, he was a murderer, he, he was an adulterer, and just probably wasn't going to win the Dad of the Year award. But you know what he really was good at is running back to God, like Jason said. So you have to spend that time with the king to understand who he is, because if not, Satan will tell you, hey, that real feel good Jesus, that's Jesus.
It,
And Jesus does want you to feel good, but like you said, he wants to transform you. Go ahead, brother.
no, it wants you to feel good because you're righteous through him,
Yeah.
right? And for everybody that goes, yeah, I heard that about David, but I haven't done those things. Well, let's pause for a moment. He was also a giant slayer
Yeah.
with a rock and a
Yeah.
slingshot.
Yeah. David was nothing to mess with.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. In my times in combat, let me tell you what I did not pick up: a rock, right? Like
Nope.
that wasn't going to be my number one option.
That wasn't on the menu.
Yeah. No, I didn't like. Yeah, I think I'm going to throw this rifle away for a rock. No, no. But it is, and it's people can look into that comment when people go, well, I'm not sold out like my pastor, this, that, and the other. I'm going to let them in on a little secret. You're all tent makers. So the Bible calls you an ambassador for Christ, period. So either you belong to one country or the kingdom.
Mm.
And now, just because this is not your full time job, well, it ain't ours either. We're tent makers. I got off work today. That's why I'm wearing the collared shirt versus the T-shirt on, Saturday morning.
That's all good.
Yeah. And to our one fan that questioned whether or not I ever had a collared shirt, I actually have two. No, but you're a tent maker.
Yeah.
The day you sign on, you're in the boxing ring. You're a tent maker. You're an ambassador, and he called you to go wherever you're going. Right.
Yes, sir.
But there's plenty of people who mistook who he was. I look at in John 6:60, Jesus comes up with some seriously heavy concepts, right? He tells them, he's like, and they had eaten there, and I flipped to the wrong page. But he talks to them, and he says, look, verily I say unto you, he that believes on me, it's everlasting life. He lets them know that right up front. He goes, I am that bread of life. And he keeps on talking, and he's talking about them eating the manna and this, that, and the other, and they're dead. And he says, and he keeps going through, and he says, my flesh and and so forth. And it says a whole bunch of folks walked away, like a whole bunch,
Mm.
and it was just tough on them to listen. So
Yeah.
they
No,
lost.
brother. I mean, I love that. That's a great point to bring out because it's a connecting to our modern day. There's still a lot of people walking away, and I want to spend a little time just challenging. Is like, asking yourself some tough questions and those around you. Is Jesus Lord, or is he just this cosmic butler to you?
Yeah.
A king commands loyalty. And that is a tough thing in this modern era. People say, "Oh, find your truth," and all this other kind of stuff, and they want the concierge to take the request. That's not what Jesus is. Jesus isn't just our helper, right? He's an advocate, but he's a holy king.
Yeah.
And there are certain standards that come with that, right? if we fall in love, or we let our hearts and our lives fall in love with convenience, because that's really what we're kind of talking about here. We all want like to wake up and like, hey man, everything is sunshiny and rosy and there's no issues. But then it feels really foreign and it feels really uncomfortable when he says you got to shoulder a cross. Ooh. Now we want to take a pause and step back and want to do like those people that you just highlight. We want to walk away like, hey, I didn't sign up for the hard time. I'm here for the good time.
Yeah. So you highlight something. So I'm going to let all the listeners in. This is the number one selling item. You want to make $1 billion. This is it. You sell convenience.
Oh yeah.
That's it. Grubhub, what the grocery thing that gets delivered, the apps that pay for things, convenience, right?
Or immorality. I'll throw that one out there too. That's another real good way to make money. Immorality. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, it is. So when people made me lose my thought.
I'm sorry.
No. But when all those people got ready to fall away, he looks at his disciples like, "You going too?" Peter says something. He goes, "Where am I going? You got the words of life.
I
You're the
love Pete.
Messiah. Where am I going?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And I probably put more sass in it than Peter did because I don't know. But and that's the truth. Like, he's a king. Does God want you to be rich? Maybe. Does he want you to be poor? I don't think so. But that's not his number one focus.
No.
His focus is on whether or not where you go when you hit that T intersection called death. And it's just, if you think about this, because there's a lot of people, the butler, right? The butler. Well, I want money. I'm gonna claim it, right? And there's a very famous evangelist that attracts a lot of that, right?
Yeah,
There's several throughout time. There's been several, and I love the story in Luke 20 and Matthew 22 about they're trying to trap Jesus about paying taxes, and he's like, "Man, that's a good question," or at least that's what I think he says. But he reaches over and he says, "Let me have a coin." Somebody got a coin. And he gets a coin. Jesus had to borrow a coin. And he's very clear on this. He says, "Hey, whose image is that?" "Well, that's Caesar's, right? I guess you need to give it to Caesar. And because you're an image and you need to give to God what's God." And in Genesis, it's very plainly, we're made in his image, right?
That's right.
The coin is made in our image. And so we, what am I ruled by? I'm ruled by my creator, right? And that's the truth.
Yeah.
I think, throughout time, tons of people have said, "Oh, what about it?" And, who is Jesus, and so forth. I love this. If you want to know in perspective, and to going in further into John 11, when Lazarus was sick, Mary and Martha go, "Hey, could you go send word to Jesus and tell him the one that he loves is sick?" And I thought about that for a while. It wasn't because they love Jesus, but it's because Jesus loves us. And that ties into, hey man, while we were sinners, he still died for our sins.
Yes. Yeah.
He loved us.
Yeah.
That's the golden nugget of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, Jason, to kind of stream off of that is, Satan's strategy, especially in this modern era, but it's always been one of his key things beyond division, is he doesn't now want to confront. It's not about conviction. It's not about confronting you, or even he doesn't even want you to get close to even feeling confronted. He wants you to be comfortably to compromise, right? He wants you to have that comfortable compromise. Like, hey, it's okay to have a little sin here. Things aren't going right. It's okay that you should be angry that you didn't get that new car and Jimmy down the street did. Forgive me for anybody that's Jimmy out there. I'm just using an example. But you have to ask yourself, this very hard question. What Jesus says in Matthew 16:24: whoever wants to be my disciple, someone who's following him, you got to deny yourself and take up your cross and follow me, not yourself, right? And do we ask Jesus to bless our plans, or do we seek his will? And I think about something that you say all the time, right? Like where you talk about, hey, I just want to be a good servant. I want to be a good ambassador. Ambassadors don't have their own plans.
No.
They don't go out to the host country and say, "Hey, this is my plan for you." You relay what the kingdom, the country has sent you. And that
Yes.
is a hard thing, I think. We go through seasons of life, just being honest and real and transparent. We all do. But if you find yourself constantly saying, "Jesus, I need you to sign off on this," like it's just some kind of check block versus saying, "Lord, what is your will for me right now in this season?" That should be a little azimuth check, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. I you know, I don't want to ever say the prayer, God be with us. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because I
Mhm.
really would rather say, God, I want to be with you. I want to be on your side,
Yeah.
right? Now that's the truth. And when you talked about Satan, I thought about this. Physics says a body in motion stays in motion until less it's acted upon,
Mhm.
right? So if you're born into sin, you're already missing the mark.
Mm.
Satan doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to tell you there is or is, he doesn't have to say, hey, there isn't a Jesus. As a matter of fact, you're on the trajectory to meet him,
Yeah.
right? And unless you take that conscious detour,
I love it. Yeah, that's good.
that because sin is missing the mark. Well,
Yeah.
you're born into sin. So you're born at the angle of missing the mark. And that's the truth. And,
Yeah.
think of it like this. When I went to selection years ago, we had the star land map, right? I've had a few chickens that have endured that course and didn't pass. But when you were out there, you calculated your point. And what they told us is it's super important that you have those little checkpoints along the way, because if you just click in your azimuth and you got it off by 1 degree, and you think about it, then you walk 18, 19 kilometers. Okay. By the end of that, you're somewhere else. You're
Yeah.
nowhere near where you're in.
Yeah, the next state.
Yeah, you're in the next state. So that's why even like having those prayer times, those are your little check marks, right?
Yeah.
Sharpening iron, sharpening iron. But when you go back to what Jesus is and this whole thing, he's the King of Kings.
I love it.
You know,
Yeah, don't make any mistake who he is and what he is not. And I just want to sum it up here as we're getting closer to our 30-minute mark. Man, it goes fast when you're having
oh, it
fun.
does.
The idol of convenience versus the discipline of discipleship. There's a difference culturally, what the world wants, right? Your family, your kids, coworkers, the community around, they don't need a passive God, okay? They need with a part-time Jesus.
Yeah.
You have to be a man that's under the authority of a full-time king. There's a difference. Having a part-time Jesus doesn't help you overcome the world. It makes you succumb. It makes you another victim. You're going with the flow. Being with the full-time king, you can stand and you can be that breach that no one can get into your house and that cultural kind of things that are going on, right? Matthew 5:14-16, you are the light of the world. What is he saying? Those who follow him, you radiate what again he is. We're ambassadors, as Jason has said many times. And I love that example because it really proves out of who are you following. The world needs to see, for us as men especially, someone who can forgive. Oh, Lordy. They need to see men who sacrifice, sacrificing for the good, not sacrificing so I can get an 85-inch TV, right? Where I'm not going to get Starbucks 3 times a week. Sacrificing for the good. We have to be men who carry our crosses. We all have things that we struggle with. And if you don't, please let me know how you're doing it because it's not the truth. You know, not to complain when it's uncomfortable, but to have that courage to help our other brothers sharpening iron, right? Jesus may fit in your heart, but he will never fit in your box. Okay. That's what I want to leave you with. He's not about your preferences. He has a standard and we have to go and fit his standard, not what we want. Go ahead, Jason.
You said something super important. As we try to be husbands and fathers and friends and mothers that are that light that shines towards Christ, right? And you said something about seeing people who sacrifice. And Jesus sacrificed, right? Let me tell you what he didn't sacrifice for. A Starbucks. No offense to the Starbucks company, but that's not it,
Yeah.
right? It's for righteousness.
Yeah.
So that we could be righteous. So if you're going to make a sacrifice and go, I sacrifice for my family, which we all do, but make sure that sacrifice also points back to Jesus. That's important, you know? And if you think about, well, Jesus does this and Jesus does that, understand, even when Mary, his mother, asked him about the wedding, he goes, "Man, my hour has not yet come." Wasn't worried about that. What he was worried about was getting to the cross,
Mhm.
and that right there, and that's when we talk about that. That's our focus.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
No, absolutely, man. We don't want to settle for self-serving Jesus. We want to seek that real savior who's going to challenge us and transform our lives and those lives and future generations around us. That's what we want. Folks, that is the Jonathan Project Podcast. Another great episode. We're off and running in a new season. I'm excited for this season. We swung for the fences on a couple things. Excited to bring those to you in time and space. So, how do you find out all those exciting things? Well, this episode and every episode comes out every Tuesday morning on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, you can find us there. We'll have all the links for you to subscribe so you don't ever miss an episode. If you found inspiration in this show, you think, hey, these guys would be great to come out, speak to a men's event, speak to a bunch of young men, women, whoever it may be, please reach out to us at thejonathanprojectpodcast at gmail.com. If you need prayer, have an episode idea, same place, thejonathanprojectpodcast at gmail.com. We'll also have the links for the free devotional. Jason, awesome spending time with you as always,
yeah.
and talk to you again soon, brother.
See you, buddy.